Hi, everybody. Strange and interesting times. I'm here in my little chilly studio in my Yeti wear. It's the first time it's really gotten cold in California. I'm talking with Compton Rom today. Now, I've been teasing this with you for a little while because, as you know, Compton, who is a microbiologist and has many other talents among them with a passion, lifelong passion and deep understanding of viruses and bacteria, is here with us today. We're going to be talking about a number of issues surrounding the virus, but most importantly, about the best strategies for keeping your health absolutely pristine. Because when it comes down to it, we have no idea what percentage of the public will encounter this around the world, but we can take responsibility for keeping ourselves healthy and calm. So as that little bumper sticker says, stay calm and carry on. And with that, let's bring Compton on. Compton, it's so good to see you again. Sorry it's under these circumstances, but what better time to see you?
Thank you very much. How are you?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you're in Utah?
I am in Utah. We're in Salt Lake, and we follow everything that LA and San Francisco does. So we just got our shutdowns of restaurants and gyms and everything last night. So I assume we're going to be on home lockup and shut down pretty soon here, quick.
Yes, and the Bay Area in particular has been, is very strict with it. I've heard from some of my friends there, about 7 million people involved, and it's home shelter, I think is what it's called, or shelter in home is the term they're using for kind of a quarantine of sorts voluntarily. And it's only to go out and get necessary goods or go to wash your clothes at a laundromat. It's interesting because I did go out today. I actually went to a farmer's market today because I wanted to stock up on 2 of our favorite items. And I had to drive by a massive mall, and it's a ghost town. All of the anchor stores and small stores in between, the whole thing had just really a few cars in the parking lot, no one on the freeway. So here in Northern California, it's also slowed way down, but they have not yet shut down the restaurant scene. So we're yet to experience that, but no one's really going out anyway. Empty grocery store shelves are starting to happen. I saw one yesterday. Interesting. You'll love it. Being as health conscious as you are, there was an end cap in our local supermarket that had like 5 or 6 shelves, boom, 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 boom. And there was just one lonely little can sitting askew of Spam. All the Spam was gone. So here we have military rations and militia and all of that, down to people who are getting their juices and saying, well, I think if we get by for a couple of days, we'll be okay. So that's where we are today. So first of all, let's talk about the virus. There's something that we're going to get into, which is the nature of viruses themselves. But give us an idea of what your understanding is in terms of what the reach of this virus will be, because you have contacts in some high places. The reach of it and when the peak is expected to hit, just from your streams of information. And we have a lot of streams happening.
Yeah, so, I went to University of Michigan Medical School, and I also then did an MD PhD program in microbiology at Michigan State University, and that was over 30 years ago. So all the guys I went to school with are major microbiologists and doctors, and I have a couple friends at the CDC, and one's actually a lawyer now for the CDC. We've just been chatting with each other and texting each other, and I will present to you the findings that I found. And unfortunately, this peak will not occur at least until mid-April. And most of the CDC compatriots that I have thinks that the peak is going to come mid-May, believe it or not.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about why it's really important that we have this quarantine, we have this self-quarantine. I know it's very encumbering for people, but in reality, China has done us all a favor by doing its quarantine so viciously and and throughout the whole country. It literally gave the whole world a way to do it on their own as well. So, and the plots will show that China's deaths are decreasing when they should have been increasing by now, but because of the quarantine, it's decreasing. And same with us. All this will pass. You know?
Yeah.
The main point is, I just want to present everyone with the facts that I know it, and the facts are coming in every hour, basically. So,
Indeed.
What I have is basically all the latest news just compiled from a scientific point of view, but I'm going to talk to everyone from a layman's point of view. So what I want to talk about is the latest findings that I've found on the news, talking with my friends in the CDC, some microbiology friends that are heads of their department, and getting from, basically the front lines, the lowdown on coronavirus. And I want to present it in layman's terms. So I don't want to be very scientific here, even though I do have the references, and I'm just the messenger. And, the disclaimers that I'm saying is that I'm a scientific person. I'm a microbiologist. I do have medical school training, but all the decisions, all the information that I'm presenting, please just take it for your educational information purposes only, and don't take it as gospel. I mean, don't take my information to supplant your doctors or any healthcare professional.
I appreciate your saying that. And I've also been with many other people kind of posting on a daily basis, interesting little bits and pieces, bits and bobs from different doctors about strategies for healing and their own opinions on it. And we're going to talk about looking at how we find this curve, how we take care of our body. And in our second part, we're going to be talking about eliminating the curve. And we're going to be even talking about some of the strategies that the CDC and others are looking at, and pharmaceutical companies are looking at for this, because it has to be mentioned what's coming down the pipe. We need to be aware of that. So let's start at the beginning, what you're learning now about where we are.
My company is Ascended Health. We've been in business for about 15 years as a microbiologist, and I actually create products for the microbiome of the body. So believe it or not, my clients are the microbes of the body. And I see the world from the microbes' point of view. And again, any information provided in this talk is meant for research, education, and informational purposes only. And this is not to be used as a substitute for professional advice. And I invite everyone to research all the information given. Now, this PowerPoint presentation, I will make it available on the ascendedhealth.com website in the next couple of days. People can download it, just review everything as they will. So, no one needs to write anything down. I just want people to sit back and just kind of like take in what I'm trying to take in, just so you can get the information. A little bit about me, the way that I'm presenting information, microbes are my friend. And our body is 90% microbes, it's only 10% human. So all this talk about the coronavirus kind of tugs at my heart, because number one, viruses are essential to our daily living. They inhabit every single cell of the body. There are viruses of humans, there are viruses of animals, there are viruses of plants. And if you go smaller, all fungi have viruses, and you go smaller, all bacteria have viruses. And in fact, the way genetic engineering was started, we're studying the viruses of this little plant called tobacco mosaic virus, and the little viruses of bacteria, and they're called bacteriophages. And how we were able to manipulate our world is literally through the study of viruses called bacteriophages. And they're essential to the way we live, and coronavirus is no different. The takeaway that I want to give for this first part is the coronavirus that we're experiencing now is a novel virus. It apparently jumped from animal to a human. And every time we get viruses that do that, we did that with the bird flu in 2006 and with the SARS in 2003. And guess what? They were all coronaviruses. And the coronavirus is basically the virus that we normally attach to a common cold. So we get coronaviruses all the time, but those coronaviruses are human viruses. They know how to act in humans. But when viruses jump from species to species, in this case, from an animal, a bat, apparently, to a human, maybe to a dog, and then to a human, it doesn't know how to act in humans. And frequently, when they jump into a new species, we're talking about viruses that kind of freak out in these new species, and they actually cause more severe symptoms at first until they learn how to live inside their host species. So what we're experiencing is actually the birth of a new virus inside a new species.
I have a quick question here, because other people are listening to you and they're wondering right now, because a lot of the information out there is that there is also there's also a laboratory outside of Wuhan that deals with these viruses, that they also engineer viruses and use them for various things, that this could be at least in part, a genetically engineered virus. Now, does that change anything if it jumped from a lab instead of just a bird or an animal?
That doesn't change things.
Okay.
A virus is a virus, whether it's man-made, genetically engineered, or it comes from nature.
Okay,
Nature
good to
is
know.
constantly genetically engineering their own virus. These viruses, all they do is mutate. And so they're kind of like roulette wheels, and they're looking for, they spin the wheel all the time with their DNA, and they mutate, in nature constantly. So to do it in the lab and spin the wheel in the lab, it's basically the same thing. You don't really know what you're getting until you find out in that host what happens. So they spin the wheel, they mutate, or in the lab they're creating different things, and they put it in the host, and they just want to see what happens.
Okay, that's good. Because we need to just kind of jump past that part. We don't know where it came from exactly, but it's here. And now we're talking about what happens as it starts mutating in the human body.
This is the coronavirus. And you see that the reason why it's called a coronavirus is because it's got these little spikes on the outside called glycoprotein spikes. And it just makes kind of like a corona-like look to it. And again, it's the virus of the common cold. We get coronaviruses every year. This one is just a special one. The nature of the coronavirus, I said that we've been infected many, many times. It's the virus that we consider as a common cold. And how it's different is like the 2003 SARS virus, this Wuhan coronavirus, which is now known as coronavirus disease 19. So it's called COVID-19. It's apparently jumped from an animal to a human. And when this happens, viruses are unstable and can cause more severe reactions at first. Now, because it's the blessing in disguise is my feeling, again, this is my opinion only, it's the virus has already jumped from China to Europe and now to the United States. So it's basically had 3 continents to kind of like submerge itself in how to live in human beings. So as a virus, viruses want to live and spread. They don't want to kill people. If viruses kill people, then the viruses don't live because it needs people. It needs people to live. So, we're witnessing the birth of what a virus is like adjusting to infecting human beings. So should we be worried? I would say no. With adequate protection, with adequate prevention, with adequate proactive measures, which I'm going to talk about, and most of all, remaining calm, we should not be worried. That's my gut feeling.
So one of the things you talked about there, which is really important, and we've talked about this in other shows, and this is, I think, where your sentiment comes in. As you just said, viruses do not want to kill the host. They need the host to live. So they're fighting and struggling to adapt to the host for their own survival. And so this is the process we're in right now globally as it goes through each of our gene pools, trying to figure out how it works best with each of our gene pools.
That's correct. Yeah, the virus is basically a meta-organism, and these viruses are somehow connected to each other. Whether they're communicating to each other, I don't know, but they're connected to each other, and they're just learning to live with human beings.
Okay, so the next question is this, because again, this whole thing, people keep likening things back to the Spanish flu, where you had a bump in it in the winter and spring one year, and then it went away, and then came out back stronger in the fall. Now, is that counterintuitive? If our bodies are starting to adapt and they're adapting to us, should we see a lessening rather than a strengthening of the effect if it pops back up again after this first wave is quelled?
No, we may see secondary effects. So once you get into a host, that host will experience intricacies in their body that may not show up 6 months later. For example, this coronavirus, I believe, is going to show up with people with heart disease in about a year. And all signs are pointing to that once you get the second attack of this particular coronavirus, you would have an increased likelihood of a heart attack. And why? It's because it's affecting respiratory cells. And for some reason, while it affects those respiratory cells, it's affecting the blood pressure and the heart rate. And within 6 months, people with lung diseases, their health starts to go down, and their cardiovascular system starts to go down. So when this hits again, you have a lesser chance of succeeding. You're not as strong as you were before. That's what happened.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. Another question that has come up that has been, I've seen debated on different sites, is whether or not if you contract it one time and you move on through it like a common cold, can you get it again, just like we can get the common cold again?
Well, it depends on if the virus mutates, right? And what you have the antigens to. I mean, I'm going to go through, on the second part of this talk, I'm going to go through the 6 layers of basic immunity and how your body fights this.
Okay.
And why we just don't want to depend on antibodies, and we don't want to depend on the antibodies that the vaccines give us. We need to depend on our natural immunity. So everything counts, and I don't want to denigrate vaccines, because vaccines are actually wonderful in the short term. And having a vaccine for this virus will save this world a lot of money, and it'll cure people fast. But again, it's only one leg of our immune system, and I'll go into that. And we need to have a balanced system to fight this virus and all the other viruses.
Yeah, because a lot of people are going to say, no, I don't want that vaccine, don't like what's coming down to the pike. I mean, okay, well, we'll get into it later, but for me personally, I've noticed in my life when I was a kid and got the standard vaccines, I got those diseases. Yeah. When I was an adult, I had the flu vaccine once, and I got the flu that one year, and I'm a more vulnerable citizen. So it's like, don't get vaccines anywhere near me. So we'll talk about the quality of the type of vaccines coming down the pike in a little bit. So do you want to go into the 7-point effect of how this rolls out?
Well, how about if I just go through quickly what the coronavirus is looking at now?
Sure.
So what you're seeing here is that China, it is now March 13th, approximately 6 weeks after, it's still going up, but it's peaking. And so they experience this phenomenon. They should have been way up here, but they've experienced this phenomenon by quarantining and getting everyone indoors and not socially interacting. They experience this phenomenon we now know as flattening the curve, okay? So right here, the United States, we have just started, probably like March 8th had just started. And in Italy, they started around March 1st. In Iran, they started on March 1st. So the virus went from China, it went to Europe, and now it's gone to the United States. So it had 3 different places to jump. And it's basically, again, learning how to deal with people. So what I expect here is I would expect severity of symptoms to be very severe in the first case, and in Europe to be less severe. In the United States, it's going to be even less severe. It's just starting here in the US. It is now March 17th. It started around March 8th in New York City. And the confirmed cases in Asia, the new cases in Asia, you can see that when it started in the beginning of January, it peaked towards the end of January. The new cases peaked in the end of January, And the number of new cases started going down after about 3 weeks. Okay? And I would expect the number of new cases in the United States to start going down after 3 weeks. The estimated US peak date, and again, I've talked to a couple of CDC experts, they expect the peak date to be around May 15th, right? My gut feeling is because we're doing all this self-quarantining and we're acting responsibly, if we superimpose the graph of China's graph, and granted, I think we're going to be less severe than China. If we superimpose it, it started on March 8th. We are here, March 16th. So we're like here on the exponential growth curve. So it's exponentially going to increase in the United States until about March 12th. April 12th, I'm sorry, for like a month from now. So we're going to be flattening the curve, and hopefully by May 15th, it'll start to decline, because China, as of yet, they haven't shown their new numbers, but they're still increasing every day. So we'll see. So
right.
We'll see about 6 to 10 weeks for full infectivity of this virus based on what's happening in China.
You know, listening to different world leaders and such, the German scientists and Angela Merkel, the chancellor there, they also have quarantined Germany, very strict quarantine. They do not want this spreading any more than necessary, obviously. And Angela said that in their opinion, a good percentage of the population would be exposed to it. It's not going to wipe out a good percentage of the population, but a large percentage of our population will have exposure to this virus, which is, to me, why the emphasis now should be on 100% on immune system building. And for the moment, the next couple months, safe practices in terms of these self-quarantines. Because, again, we have a very interesting audience who's going to say, yeah, but what about the social isolation? What about the economic impacts? Those are all impacts. I believe it's going to be a different world that we're living in, economically, socially, and in terms of our own heart and responsibility to one another. By the summer, I think it's going to look like a different world. And so we can be okay with that, but what you have to say is the key in helping bring ourselves together and into a wholesome state of health, because that's really the issue.
I mean, we really need to look holistically what makes up our health and our well-being. Yeah. And I'm going to go over the 6 layers of immunity. And obviously the first layer is basically our belief system, right?
Absolutely.
Whether we're fear-based or we're determined to come together as one. And you can tell the people that are fear-based and what they're doing, just how they talk to you, how they handle the doors, and whether or not someone is like really afraid, or someone that's just going out there to be determined. But right now, mentally and psychologically, I want to present the facts and figures to show that we shouldn't be in fear of this coronavirus. And this is actually a blessing in disguise. Obviously, we're going through a lot of financial trouble right now and psychological trauma right now, but we're going to look back and we'll see that as a country, we're coming together as a people, and hopefully in our food system, we're going to create a food system that's a lot more nutritious than it already is, because our nutritional status as a general public is horrible.
True, and our emotional status, especially in America, where people are, and it's true all over the world, people are all stressed and have money situations globally. But in America, this whole work ethic that we have, that our value has to come through that. And now people are being told to stay home. Some companies cannot work from home. People have suddenly a 2, 3, 4, 8 week vacation and are looking at time maybe for the first time that's undedicated to be quiet and to feel yourself. And I keep thinking, what's going to happen when it all cranks back up and people say, I hated my life. I hate that job. I don't want to do that anymore.
And people are going to find out that the actual real wealth is health.
Exactly.
The first wealth is health. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
biggest part of health is not the foods that it's not the supplements that we take, the supplements that we sell. It's our mindset. It's our emotional health. And it's how we treat each other and basically how we treat ourselves and how we look at ourselves. And it is just like that. You know, when we're on airplanes and we get that speech that we never listen to, and the first thing they say that, hey, before you put this mask on your child, you got to put this mask on yourself. So we need to treat ourselves kindly. And one of the things now, because we're in a state of fear, everybody, especially the heads of the households, we need to look at ourselves and start looking at ourselves kindly and not try to think, hey, how have I failed my family? How have I failed my children? And how have I failed my parents, you know, as a caregiver or whatnot? This is a new chance to start from ground zero. This is a new chance to start appreciating life and re-looking at how we're doing things.
And to care for one another.
And to care for one another. And so the information that I'm about to give, at the end, at the second part, I'm actually going to teach people how to create some of these formulations with natural supplements that have been proven to be effective, some against the coronavirus, and most of these against the AIDS virus, because the coronavirus and the AIDS virus are very, very similar. So I'm going to be open sourcing how to do it, and hopefully people will come together and start to share, So, I'm going to, maybe we can do another session and how I can take people how to make some of these supplements, basically how to make a yogurt.
Yes, so, a plant-based yogurt. I think you said a plant-based
yogurt. That'll be in the second part.
Yeah.
So this first part, let's just look at the symptoms of coronavirus. Okay, so number one you can see is fever. Most of the 90% of the time it's fever, and then you have dry cough and fatigue. So basically the three big ones is fever, dry cough, and fatigue. We do have a little bit of sputum and shortness of breath, but then it goes down to muscle pain, sore throat, headache, chills, vomiting, nasal congestion, and diarrhea. And what they don't say is probably 30 to 40% of the people with the actual coronavirus are asymptomatic, meaning that they don't show any symptoms except for maybe a slight fever, which you can't tell, or a little dry cough.
Well, what's interesting is part of this is also happening during allergy season, right?
That's
so
correct.
Some people can't tell. In fact, a friend of Zeus's has tested positive. He has a congregation of people. So the city of Omaha told him to take the test, said, yes, you should take the test. He'd come back from Spain. Didn't have any symptoms when he returned, did all of the things you're supposed to do according to the CDC, and came back and he thought he just had allergies. He just had a little tickle, cough in his throat. Turned out he had coronavirus and he's now quarantined, but it blew through in 2 days. Just a cough, a slight cough that he thought was an allergy.
So allergic symptoms, and then people might have another type of cold.
Yeah.
It's really common. The flus are common this time of year. So as we continue, the good news, okay, so the bad news is that increasing. The good news is the death rates in China are dropping, and they're dropping fast. More good news. Okay, I just found this out today. As more people shed high levels of coronavirus, most are not likely infectious after about 10 days after they start to experience symptoms.
Okay, so good to know.
10 days. So basically less than 2 weeks, a week and a half after one starts to experience symptoms and you do have the coronavirus, most people aren't infectious anymore. Good news.
Good news.
Yes. So unfortunately, older people are affected with the coronavirus. So the ages of people that are 80 and above in China, approximately 20%, 1 out of 5 of those people affected had died. And 1 out of 10 between the ages of 70 and 80 have died. And between 60 and 69, about 1 out of 20. So when you're lower than 50 years old, that's when the fatality rates really start to decrease. But that doesn't mean the infectivity, okay? So the millennials—
1 in 5. It looked like the number was 1 in 5 over 80 at 18%, right? Roughly 1 in 5.
Yes, over 80 is 1 in 5 in China.
Right.
And over 70, it's 1 in 10. Over 60, it's 1 in 20.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just saw a thing, the millennials are calling this the boomer busters.
Yeah.
Because all the boomers are in their 60s now.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they're the ones getting hardest hit by this. But the ones that are experiencing symptoms that are actually getting the ones that you can see that the highest peak in those experiencing symptoms are the ones between 50 and 59. And around them is the 70s and the ones that are 40s. So people in their 20s, they're less to experience this. And believe it or not, the children are not getting symptoms.
Yeah.
As with the Spanish flu.
Yeah.
The Spanish flu in 1908, the only ones that got symptoms were the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is amazing. I mean, that gives a lot of people some comfort.
Yes. So children below the ages of 20, they probably won't get the coronavirus. It's the millennials and up getting it. So it's great. It's really good news.
Very good news.
When I first saw this in the beginning of part of February, the initial results came in that the COVID had a 0.3% fatality rate, but that was across the board. And when we started looking at the different demographics, we're seeing that the fatality rate of COVID was really high. And against, seasonal flu, while the seasonal flu had a 0.1% fatality rate for all ages, COVID-19 in China is 10 to 20 times higher, 2.3%. And you can see that, in ages 60 years, it's 4 to 7 times higher than the flu. It's about a 6% fatality rate, with every year. So, what ends up happening now is they're finding that the coronavirus is being carried by money. Yeah. And
this is obvious. I was thinking about that at the farmer's market this morning and thought, at what point do they tell people that they have to go to other pay sources and can't carry money? And I think some people have expressed a concern about that. So tell us about it.
Well, China, a lot of the money there is in paper bills, and they're finding out that the coronavirus, besides other flu viruses and other viruses, the coronavirus has been shown to survive up to 12 days on paper money, and it's even more on coins. Coins that can survive up to 30 days. And in New York, $1 bills in New York, they found over 400 bacterial species living on the surface. So China, in places like Wuhan, they're literally burning the paper money and giving people either new money or they're putting that on debit cards.
Interesting. We'll see how that plays out here and around the world. Okay. Very interesting.
So that's one thing to keep aware of. If you've got paper money, there are ways to clean the money. Either you put the money, I say, in ozonated water, and I'll tell you how to do that, or you spray it with 70% alcohol. Okay, so you don't want to spray it with 90% alcohol. 70% alcohol is the way to spray things, because the water in the alcohol is actually the one thing, the solvent that's actually going to get into the virus and kill it.
Yeah, this gets a lot of people in more of the conspiracy communities pretty upset, thinking that the ability to carry paper cash might be eliminated as a result of this. But we've just got to, like you said, you're going to show us how to launder our own money, and then we just have to wait and see how the governments of the world are going to respond to this particular hazard. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide.
So just today, there's another theory that's going around that taking ibuprofen could make the coronavirus even worse. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, obviously, we're going to have to do some research into that. Most of the people that I'm talking about, this is anecdotal evidence. And I'm a big believer in anecdotal evidence, but I'm also a big believer in scientific studies. But right now, they're saying that ibuprofen is something that could actually make the symptoms worse.
Is that because it could bring down unnecessary fever or what?
Well, that's because that ibuprofen, as opposed to aspirin, as opposed to other NSAIDs, has a different effect on the immune system, and we don't know what's happening. So, every single anti-inflammatory we take has a different effect in our body.
Doesn't that affect the liver more?
It does.
Yeah.
Tylenol and other ibuprofens, acetaminophen, they affect the liver. But they affect the liver in different degrees. Now, ibuprofen affects the liver by the cytochrome P450 system, and who knows what it's doing. Anecdotal evidence is saying that the people taking ibuprofen are experiencing symptoms where the people that aren't taking ibuprofen aren't experiencing symptoms. And again, we know that the young kids are not experiencing symptoms, but it seems that the ones that are experiencing symptoms have been taking the ibuprofen. And again, take this all with a grain of salt. So now we want to talk about flattening the curve. Okay, so this whole question of why self-quarantining is so important and why people really need to take quarantining seriously and not dismiss it. It's not a joke. What they found in China, and thank goodness China is doing this, because without their lead, we wouldn't be doing this. They took this very seriously right away. And their leadership saw that the impact that this was going to have in the world economy. So they took protective measures to decrease the social interactions with people. And what they saw was, instead of the curve going this way as it once was going to do, it went blip, and it went down here. And what you're trying to do is you want to flatten the curve enough so the healthcare system doesn't expand its capacity. So staying home helps prevent the U.S. healthcare system from being overloaded. And why we need to be responsible is because the elderly people that are really going to need the healthcare system need to be in there. And we, as the younger people, we can help them out and provide space in our healthcare system for the ones that truly need it. That's why we need this help.
Yeah, and we're hearing from different cities, certainly around America, because we have that media flowing here, that there are a number of areas and major hospitals that have their health professionals and nurses in quarantine because they've been exposed. So they're already stressed to the max on personnel, and they have not up to this point been able to get test kits to find out if they may have 100 nurses in quarantine, self-quarantine, and they have no tests. So this is tough. We really want to stay out of the hospital if we can, right?
Yes, we do. And even if you get tested, the natural supplemental means that I'm going to be presenting in part 2 of this, we should be taking it anyway, because they're natural things that people take on a daily basis, and they don't harm us. So as long as it doesn't harm us, we should be taking it.
Yeah, agreed.
What we want to do here is, my mission was, can we do better than this? And I'm saying, yes, we can eliminate the curve. We can take this curve all the way out. And this is what the point of my next slide, or my next presentation is going to be in eliminating the curve. No one's talking about that yet.
No, they're not.
Okay, so how can we eliminate the curve? Well, the only way to eliminate the curve right now is to take home-based proactive and defensive measures. If we don't take proactive measures ourselves, we're going to have to wait until the government and the various forces that be force measures on us. But if we can collectively look at ourselves and say, hey, we can do this, and take proactive measures. And the number one thing with proactive measurement is raising our innate immunity. And I'm going to talk about that in our next series of slides. And the number one thing to raise our immunity is our belief system. It's not anything that we take. It's not anything that we do. It's not any of the foods that we eat. It's our belief system. Are we going to live in fear, or are we going to be determined and just do it?
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to have knowledge. And the worst part of this has been what people are most afraid of course, is the unknown. And because we haven't been given any reliable information in the U.S., and because they haven't made tests available here and so forth, it's left people to think for themselves and oftentimes go into panic mode if they're fearful by nature. So I think this kind of calm, sane conversation is really important to say, hey, a lot of people will be exposed to it, but they're not going to die for it. Of course, we've already gone over the fact that the elderly are certainly going to be more challenged, and the bulk of the population will not have severe effect from it. So fear, I think you're right, absolutely, is the number one thing we have to contend with, and just flatten the curve on fear.
Exactly. Eliminate the curve on fear. So let's look at fear. Okay. So number one, the death rates in China is already going down after 6 weeks. But we saw after 3 weeks, China, let's say China got infected January 1st, but after 3 weeks, the number of new cases drastically started going down because they started quarantining, right? We got this on March 8th, it started appearing in New York City. So after 3 weeks, it should be the end of March before the new cases will start to go down. And that's in a week, the end of March, a week and a half. So, if we can just quarantine ourselves now for the next week and a half and just stay calm, all the new cases will start going down, right? The death rates are going down. We're seeing a decrease in severity of the symptoms. Self-quarantining is working. So let's get out of fear mode. Let's get in a proactive determination mode.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
I'm going to talk about the basic levels of immunity. And there are 6 basic levels of immunity. And again, I am not a medical school doctor. I am not a doctor, but I have gone to medical school, and I'm going to give you my version of immunity. This is not the official version of immunity. So this is something that I'm teaching my daughter. I'm teaching other children just how to basically understand our different levels of immunity so they can understand where our cells are coming from and how our bodies are reacting to our environment. Okay, so I'm talking to you as if I'm talking to my 5-year-old. So our first basic level of immunity is our belief system. And we know that our belief system is counteracted by this thing called placebo and nocebo effect. And by all accounts, a lot of sugar pills are given to people, and people get better. And a lot of sugar pills are given to people, and people start experiencing symptoms that aren't supposed to be experiencing because they're experiencing the belief that sugar pill is going to give them bad side effects, okay? So when you're given a sugar pill and your belief system is so strong that this is going to heal me, that's called the placebo effect. But when you're giving the sugar pill and you're saying, oh, I'm experiencing this cough and I'm experiencing this fever and it's giving me side effects, that's called the nocebo effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. The power of belief system. That's our first line of defense, right? And again, we want to ask people, are you fear-based or are you determined? And right now I'm asking people, like, even if you're fear-based, let's own that. Just own the fact that you are fear-based and just take it in, know that you're fear-based, face your fear, and just keep going. In the definition of courage for our soldiers going into wars, and I'm not a big proponent of wars, but the definition of courage is not having fear, it's having fear and moving through it. That's courage. You always have fear. You ask any soldier, they're scared to death about going in there. They're not like absence of fear. They're just going through it. And we can do this too.
Yeah. So
our second physical barrier, social distancing, and our skin, mouth, and digestive acids in our stomach and our digestive tract. Okay, so now we have these natural barriers to prevent bacterias and viruses and fungi. Now, the first part is hygiene, obviously. So we just got this concept called social distancing. It's a brand new concept. Okay, so I guess if we can't spit on each other and breathe on each other.
Hug each other.
And hug each other. That's a good thing. But, honestly, without social interaction, our immune system goes down. If we spend life in social isolation, our immune system goes down. So it's very, very important that we keep socially interacting. And as soon as possible, as soon as this quarantine lifts, let's do a lot of hugging, okay? But physically, our body's our second level of immunity is our physical barriers. We have skin for a reason, right? Because things are going to go into our skin. We have our nose and our larynx and our stomach and our digestive system and out to our intestines for a reason. Is because we're like a donut. Believe it or not, our mouths, our pharynx, our stomach, all the way down through our digestive tract, all the way down to our anus and rectum is still the external environment. There's a barrier, there's a physical barrier between that external environment that our body says, no, we want the bouncers of our system to prevent the things that we don't know and we don't know about, to clear our bouncers. And our bouncers is the epithelial layers between our mouth and our digestive system. We've got these stomach acids that's literally meant to burn, right? Things aren't meant to go into our bodies without going through these skin barriers. Things aren't meant to be injected into our bodies. If God meant us to have injections, he would have made organic syringes.
Agreed.
So every time we get injected with something, we are actually bypassing the natural barriers that God meant us to have. The next barrier is the nutrition and environment. Are we getting nutritious food? Are we getting empty toxic food? And what are we doing about EMF hygiene? Okay, this is really important. In order for us to have a strong immunity, we have to have real food. I mean, real food. What's happening right now, the foods that we're getting, they're being grown in such a way that we're finding out that the corn that we used to eat, that used to have 30% of the corn used to be protein. It used to be part of the kernel. Now it's less than 5% of the corn is actually protein. The rest is empty starch sugar. And they're very empty of vitamins. They're empty of all the nutritious things that corn had even 30, 40 years ago. So a lot of the big corporations that are coming out with foods that are less than $1, they have to get that food from somewhere. So these foods are quickly grown. They're grown with the cheapest of material, and they're grown with a lot of pesticides and herbicides. And so the plants that grow under those conditions, the animals that grow under these conditions, they're just grown to look like food, but they don't really have food. So we really need to eat food. And then toxins in food. Believe it or not, there are a lot of toxins in food. There's a lot of pesticides and herbicides, even in organic food. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of pesticides and things like that in food. When we were living in Hawaii, we were getting tested for a particular toxin, and everything had the toxin that in Hawaii. And the only way to get the pesticides and the toxins of the food out, even the organic foods, the foods that we had in farmers markets, was to start rinsing this food in ozonated water. And I'll show you how to do that. So my feeling is get as organic or farmers market food as much as possible. Get foods that are non-GMO as much as possible. And then once you get fresh food, wash them in ozonated water. And I'll show you how to do that.
Yeah, you've been big on that practice for a long time, long before this flu virus came around.
Ozone will kill all viruses, including the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second part of nutrition is EMF. Okay, so I've been a big proponent of studying longevity. And one of the biggest markers for longevity is called phase angle. And we've got these machines that measure the phase angle. And what phase angles do, it measures the bounciness of each cell. And the bounciness of each cell is your cellular membranes. And there are two things that make a cell very rigid and bouncy. And the bouncier the cell is, when you put an electrical signal on this on a cell, it's going to bounce. And the higher the bounce is the higher the phase angle. And what we're finding that in the 70s, they were bouncing at about a level of 7. So they looked at people from 20s all the way up to their 70s, and they're bouncing at about a 7. And now what we're finding is that we're lucky to get a bounce above a 6 in the 2000s. And our foods are less nutritious, but what has drastically increased since the 70s is the amount of information and the amount of EMF that we're receiving.
Absolutely. Now, interestingly, I watched this one video, and you can tell me what you think about this, that EMFs, and especially 5G, for example, as one, has a very direct effect on our oxygen carrying capacity. And one of the things they were saying that was interesting was that the Princess liner, the first ship that came over, actually, that I believe that's the one that docked here in California, and then that's what started spreading it in California, that they had the most sophisticated 5G, most saturated, sophisticated 5G system on board of any shipping line ever. As these people were becoming infected with this virus, they think it may have caused a much greater amount of damage in terms of the people's body's response to the virus. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can't give you any thoughts. I don't want to give you any opinions about how 5G is related to coronavirus. But I will tell you that I've got a slide showing that back in 2000, they noticed that the 5G network has to be put out at a particular frequency, right? So the 4G networks are put out, let's say, at 30,000 gigahertz of energy. 5Gs are actually put out at 60 gigahertz. And in 2000, they said, oh my God, it's not coming out as strongly as we think it should be coming out based on the amount of EMF power that we're putting out. What's going on? And you know what they found out? They found out that the oxygen in the air was absorbing 98% of all the EMF energy.
Yeah.
At 60 gigahertz.
Wow. Yeah. Okay? This is serious.
So what's happening is where's that EMF going? It's going into the oxygen molecule. It's going into the water molecules because water has oxygen. And when you breathe the air, that has oxygen. And when you drink the water that has oxygen, what are you getting besides the oxygen? My thoughts are you're also getting the effects of that EMF energy. So, you know, and studies have repeatedly show that increasing amounts of EMF decrease the immunity. So think of it as you will.
Absolutely. And people can do things at home. They can, shut the system down, shut their routers down, do what they can. It's more difficult when you're in saturated housing environments like apartment buildings because it passes through. And then one of the things that, as far as technology goes, I don't know if you know Clayton and Jeff and the fluffy FLFE guys, Focus Life Force Energy, but that particular frequency, they've done tests on it now, and that seems to ameliorate a lot of the EMF energy in the home. So that's another great way to go. And I think there are other people starting to come out with new technologies doing this as well, but it's worth checking into because our beings are being exhausted. Our cells we seem to be going through a new level of exhaustion as societies around the world. And I really think it does have to do with the bombardment of these frequencies 24/7 and then living with cell phones right here.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, put your cell phones on airplane mode as much as you can. My cell phone here, I've got this covering.
Yeah.
Safe sleeve, right?
What's it called again?
It's called a safe sleeve. It looks like this. Let me see if I can. It's just radiation protective. Here's the thing. It's called safesleeve.com. Okay, so EMF. Turn your Wi-Fi off at night. Cover yourself with EMF blankets. You can go to lessemf.com and to look at, they even got EMF paints that you can paint your bedroom with, or they've got like this covering that you can cover your bedroom with. You can go to get earthing devices and ground yourself, okay? So if you got dirt around your house, just walk in the dirt and just literally ground yourself. And we're finding that, my discussion on phase angle, we're finding that if you can ameliorate your EMF, if you can hydrate yourself better, and if you can take foods that are high in this one substance called fulvic acids.
Fulvic acids, yes.
Fulvic acids, right? Fulvic acids are high in negative and positively charged ions. We have this probiotic called our active detox probiotic, where we actually have fermented fulvic acids from around the world, different types of fulvic acids. I found that my phase angle, just by doing the earthing, drinking a lot of this hyperoxygenated water from a company called Ophora.com, and taking this active detox probiotic, has actually increased my phase angle like one whole point. It went back from like a 5.7 to a 6.7, which is unheard of. So I'm ecstatic.
Yeah, you would be. Well, you are the picture of health.
Well, we're actually going to be demonstrating this at the biohacking conference, at the Bulletproof conference. It was supposed to be in 2 weeks, but it's been delayed now.
Yeah, they've all been canceled. I'm speaking at a few events too, and they've all been canceled.
Yeah. So if you want to see me live, spend the $1,500 to go to this Bulletproof conference.
Or watch you here.
Yeah, or watch it here. Yeah, David Asprey will thank you.
So, all right. No, I think that's important, because we've just talked about the fact that good health has to do with the effective uptake of oxygen in our cells. And if that's being disturbed by these frequencies, we have to do what we can to knock that off.
Right. And what we need to do to increase the availability of oxygen, especially to our mitochondria, which is a bacteria, by the way. It's a microbe. So to be able to increase the viability of that, that's the whole purpose of all the products that we're creating at Ascended Health. So number 4, the 4th level of immunity is called our microbiome. And believe it or not, this to me is our major level of immunity. Actually, really our major level of immunity is our belief system. I stand corrected. Whatever we believe, everything is going to go. But the bacteria comprising 90% of the cells, they tell us what our cravings are. So whatever their cravings are, they're also telling us what to believe in. So if you have the bacteria of fear, shit it out. Eat some bacteria that could be highly determined. And basically, when we ferment the bacteria in our lab, we're actually fermenting them with positive aspirations, and we're putting in like these 432 frequencies, these 528 frequencies, and so they're very happy bacteria. And also, we're sourcing our bacteria from longevity zones. We're sourcing bacteria from Okinawa, Japan, from Ikaria, Greece, from the Nicoya Peninsula, from different areas of the world where people are happy, and also people live a long time. So.
And are these fermented? Because in my last show with you, you were really getting underway with the fermentation of some of these.
Yes, they're fermented because now we're finding out that, all of a sudden we can't count on modern conveniences to do these things. For example, I'm going to talk about vaccines. Well, all vaccines need to be refrigerated, right? So what if we can have a vaccine that doesn't have to be refrigerated? And I'll talk about that. So we're going to come into a situation where we're going to have to throw food out because there could be a possibility that our electricity gets shut down. Who knows, right? So we need to think about food and how we make foods a different way. And I think it's my social responsibility to start telling people how to create these fermented foods and dehydrate them in a way so you can have them for these situations such as this. But for now, I'm kind of proving it with the foods that we're creating and the products that we're creating at Ascended.
Now, are these used as a tincture, as a supplement, these longevity zone fermented herbs and foods?
Yes, they are being used as a tincture, as a supplement. But what I'm going to teach people is that the secret is that we're going to make them in highly concentrated form. So the secret is I'm going to teach people how to make a yogurt. We're plant-based here at Ascended Health, so I'm going to teach people how to make plant-based yogurts. But you put these tinctures in the form of the tinctures that will have a sugar in the form of a honey called a master honey, and you just put it inside these milk-based yogurts, milk-based. You're squeezing milk from these nuts, and boom, you're going to have a yogurt in like 2 to 3 days, and those bacteria will be really healthy. They'll be in exponential phase. Plus, you're going to have these tinctures, and it'll be like, depending on the tincture you'll get, it'll be like a beer. So
that sounds lovely.
That's great. These things are fantastic. It's going to make you feel fantastic.
Okay, good. Well, we've got that coming up. So what's next on the agenda here?
Well, I just want to tell you about what's nutritious about these tinctures. Okay, so people talk about building a healthy microbiome from the point of view of the actual probiotic, from the point of view of having the actual microbes, and which is true. You have to have a lot of really healthy microbes in your microbiome, and then they talk about the foods that microbes eat, which are called the prebiotic. Yeah, so in our tinctures, we're including a lot of prebiotics food. So when it gets into your belly, the microbes have a lot of things to eat. So these prebiotics are like, a lot of it is like inulin, not insulin, inulin from inulin from chicory. But any like vegetable starch will do. Like if you mash avocados, if you mash mangoes, if you mash grapefruit pectins and apples, those are all forms of prebiotics that you can put in.
I hope you're enjoying this video, because if you are, there are dozens more like it on my site, all supported by people like you. So if you'd like to keep this work rolling in and join our community, just click on the Patreon button at reginameredith.com. That also gives you access to insider commentary, my live book club, and other live events with special guests. So join in. Thanks.
The most important thing, more than a probiotic, more than a prebiotic, is actually the postbiotics. That's the most important ingredient in a fermented food. So these postbiotics are called small chain fatty acids. And small chain fatty acids are, the most famous one is acetic acid, which we now know as vinegar. So when wine goes bad, wine is a mixture of these small chain fatty acids and ethanol, right? We don't want very much of it, or else the ethanol is going to go away and we're going to get this super buttery taste, or worse yet, we're going to get this vinegary taste. But believe it or not, it's that vinegar, that acetic acid, is very, very healthy for you. And that's why apple cider vinegar is very healthy for us. But that's just one small chain fatty acid. In our gut, we're making thousands. Okay, we got butyric acid, we got propionic acid, we got acetic acid, we've got valic acid. When they did this, the China study, for example, when they studied plant-based diets in people, they're finding that people with plant-based diets had high amounts of this valeric acid or valic acid. And they're finding out that the reason why they're eating less and they've got a change in their microbiome is because of the plants that they're eating. It's changing their small chain fatty acid complex from a meat eater to a plant eater, and they're getting healthier. They actually got a lot thinner eating these plant-based foods. So small chain fatty acids are very important. So we're using a lot of microbes that are creating a diversity of these small chain fatty acids. The second thing that microbes make is they actually make their own natural antibiotics. Okay? So when bacteria make antibiotics against another bacteria, they're called bacteriocins. And believe it or not, bacteria want their gut all to themselves. They don't want any fungus, even though funguses live there. And they especially don't want viruses, because viruses attack them. So they actually make antibiotics against fungus. It's called fungicins. And they make antibiotics against viruses called virusins. I will teach people how to make your natural antibiotics through these tinctures that we have. And I've learned it all by making these pro-alive probiotics and the active detox probiotics. We've measured the bacteriocin levels and the fungicin levels in the pro-alive probiotic, and they're appreciably higher than any other probiotic out there in the market. In fact, I think they're the only ones out there that have these natural bacteriocin and fungicin levels. So if we take that and we make our own yogurts out of it, people will start to make their own bacteriocins and fungicins and viruses.
I love it. Low tech, natural, overall improvement in health, and something that could potentially reduce or eliminate viruses in the guts, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
So my only request is, I'm going to be open sourcing all of this. My only request is that everybody share their data. And somehow, some way, we're going to have some sort of open source forum where we can create what's called outcome studies. Okay, modern medicine, hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, they validate the efficacy of their drugs through outcome studies, and we'll do the same thing. You know, when I was at IBM, I cut my teeth creating outcome studies for Johnson & Johnson, for Merck, for Eli Lilly, and Pfizer. And we were looking at the efficacy of their pharmaceuticals after 6 months and finding out who exactly these different pharmaceuticals were working best for. Were they working best for women, for young kids, or older adults, or women that were Hispanic, women that were white? And now, you know, because of psychometrics, I want to find people that are fear-based, or people that are goal-oriented, people that are have a high convincer strategy, like people that are really skeptical versus people that are really open-minded and are willing to believe anything, you know, like you and I.
Right. We are perfect poster children for...
Exactly. You see it on Facebook, it's got to be true. So I've learned to have a convincer strategy of, look, I've got to have 2 or 3 different solid pieces of credible information, credible news sources before I'll believe Facebook now. So,
yeah.
I'm going to create a database that will take people's, how people react to this yogurt and these products that they make, and say, hey, how did it work for you? Right? So someone
based on psychometrics.
Exactly, right? So if someone is fear-based, this particular product may not work for them. But if someone is like, hey, I'm a big believer in in everything, and I got
including yogurt.
Yeah, I've got the placebo effect going for me all the time. This product will work for you, right? So in this way, we can all get together as a community, and we can be in that situation where no product is better than another product. I don't want to say that Ascended Health products are best, because it's not true. There's going to be a product for you that's better for you, because you're at a different phase in your life. You're in a different phase in your health projects, and you're in a different phase in your emotional status, right? For someone out there, a Twinkie is going to be great for them. For most people, no, right? For someone out there, like McDonald's food is going to be great for them, but we can prove it through outcome study.
Yeah. Interesting. But then again, that has to do with your own patterns of belief, your own patterns of comfort. So that gets us back to what we touched on a little bit ago, the notion of vaccines, because the information out there, I listened to one video with Dr. William Wong. Dr. Wong was saying, they've already got the vaccines for this, especially if it was engineered in a lab. They don't do that without having the fix for it. But in any event, you and I talked just very briefly, vaccines are not created equal. And my strong hit is, like you said, don't cross that barrier. The skin and these internal tracts are for a reason. And you were saying it is not good thinking to cross that barrier. And I am obviously, I know there are times I've had so many because I traveled all over Southeast Asia in the 70s and I had to have everything. Okay, got through it. But by and large, I'm not really down with what are looking like COVID and flu vaccines at all. So now when we're just talking privately, you were saying that some of them are created, they're just biological, and others are synthetic. What is the difference between those? And what do you think is going to roll out here in response to governments either mandating or suggesting vaccines? Of course, this is going to profit the pharmaceutical industry hugely. So kind of what's your general thought on it?
Well, there is, the bad news about vaccines now is there are no vaccines for the COVID virus.
Yeah.
Good news for those that believe in vaccines is vaccines are coming out. And there's one actually in a phase 3 clinical trial now from a company called Moderna. And they just started the first trial, a human trial, yesterday. And
Is this the one happening in California?
In Seattle.
It's in Seattle because they're talking about experimenting with one in California where they're going to use healthy people in their 40s, but that it did not contain any of the virus. It was a completely different.
That's a therapeutic. There's a difference, and I'm going to talk about that. In terms of your question, let's just say, I'm going to talk about vaccines, but let's just say there's 2 types of vaccines being produced now. The regular tried and true vaccine is they actually take the virus that's produced by nature and they kill that virus. They attenuate that virus. And it started out with the original polio virus. So they heat and activated that virus. But they found out when they injected that heat and activated virus in the body, it still had an effect because the body still reacted to that virus because it recognized it as a foreign thing, right? So, but that virus was still made by Mother Nature from Oxford Universal Source. So of the 7 companies that I'm going to talk about creating vaccines, 6 of them are creating these biological vaccines. So they're taking things found in nature and they're inactivating it and they're modifying it somehow, and they're going to inject it back into the human being. Okay.
But then you have to get a little bit into the things, the constituents they put in with it, which are often the toxic parts, whether it's a stabilizer.
They're called adjuvants, because actually when you inject someone with something, the body is so efficient that it's not going to have like an immediate response unless you're hypersensitive to it. So they have to inject these things called adjuvants into vaccines to make your body react more.
Do they have healthier ones these days? Are there some that are not?
That's a good question because you don't really know the long-term effects of adjuvants, So there's a theory out now, and again, this is not my opinion. I'm just giving you a theory that's out there that the reason why people are experiencing these autoimmune disorders 20 years after they've gotten these vaccines is because of the adjuvants that become latent in their system and they've been deposited in the fat cells. And they're just, when people are starting to detoxify or they're losing weight, these adjuvants are coming out. Again, that's a theory.
It's interesting because that would be the timeline. It was roughly a decade, a couple of years more than that, after I had this onslaught of all these vaccines for all these tropical diseases around the world that I started having kind of chronic immune system problems, and I'd never linked it to that. But I sat under a microwave dish in a newsroom for those years. Literally, it was right above our head. So between those 2 things, it really tanked my immune system. I have to deal with it.
There are ways to get your immune system back up.
Mm-hmm.
Get these adjuvants into the system. There are ways to detoxify yourself. We can give ourselves an oil change because these adjuvants are deposited in the fat cells of the body. But you know what contains the most fat in the body? Our cellular membranes. Every single cell is like 90% fat.
Interesting. So how do we dump these things from our body?
You got to do an oil change. No one ever talks about doing an oil change.
Well, how do you do an oil change?
We have to lose weight, number one. So your body has to burn fat. So the whole paleo thing, the whole Wim Hof thing, the whole intermittent fasting thing we got to do this. So, we have to lose the weight, number one. So the body burns the fat that our weight is all these carbohydrates are being transferred into fat.
Dumping fat.
You got to dump.
I've never heard this before. This is, okay, interesting.
As we lose the weight, we have to refill the fat that comes in because our body's going to crave fat. We have to refill the fat with clean fat that our cell membranes can use. And the cleanest fat is called phosphatidylcholine, PC.
PC,
and it comes from lecithin. Soy lecithin, we use sunflower lecithin. But we'll talk about that another time. We'll talk about detoxification therapies.
Okay.
And do this. This guy that's espousing this, he got a Nobel Prize for this.
Wow. Okay.
For talking about cellular membranes, and he is now saying, look, we can do this kind of like conveyor belt system where we're ingesting like healthy phosphatidylcholine through liposomal technology. Again, this is something that we're producing. We're producing like these liposomes where we're producing healthy fat for the body and depositing healthy fat in our cells. Another talk for another time, but it's building healthy cells.
Okay, so continuing on the vaccine talk here, you're saying that most of them are doing biological vaccines. The carriers that are going to shock our system, adjuvants, are varying in quality, in composition.
Right. So, these pharmaceutical companies, they obviously, want to do the best job that they can. They have very, very competent scientists working for them. They don't have an agenda. It's not a conspiracy theory. Trust me.
But what about for profit? I was reading about their projections between 2020 and 2025, which is fivefold. I mean,
as a former scientist, I can tell you right now, I wasn't doing things for profit. I was doing things to write papers.
But that's you. That's not the CEO of these companies, whom I don't particularly trust.
And the shareholders of the company.
Exactly.
People that are doing the work. Doctors and the PhDs, the ones that are doing the work. They have children too,
Yeah.
They want to save the world too.
Yeah, the doctors do. I agree.
And in their belief system, these vaccines are saving the world, and more power to them, So
what about when
there's going to be a point where vaccines are going to be really safe? It's just not to that point right now, but there will be a point where that's going to happen. But there's also going to be a point where the 6 basic levels of immunity that I'm espousing, there are going to be more and more people focused on 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Right. Some people are only focused on 6. The 5th level of immunity is our cellular immune system, and our 6th level of immunity is called the humoral immune system. This is actually the immune system I learned when I was in medical school back in the 80s. We still had the term cellular immune system. We still had the term humoral immune system. And for the sake of simplicity, it's not called that anymore, but it's for the sake of simplicity. I'm giving this to my daughter. I'm actually writing and creating like a cartoon for my daughter with characters that represent these things from different islands. And this cartoon has this little girl rowing her boat to these different islands. And the 5th island is called your cellular immune system. And they contain these characters called white blood cells, okay? Macrophages, neutrophils, and eosinophils. So the 5th level is actually a strong level. And they do the work that that when our microbes are overloaded, and frequently they start doing the work for the human cells. The microbes are only really concerned for themselves, and secondarily, they're concerned about their host, the human beings. So their bacteriocins, fungicins, small chain fatty acids are really there to regulate themselves and a little bit the human, right? So when the human being takes over, the actual human cells are called white blood cells. And these white blood cells comprise what used to be known the cellular immune system. I don't know whether it's called that anymore, but there are several types of white blood cells. And let's divide it into 2 groups. The groups that do the everyday grunt works, like the infantry, and then we'll call the special forces, the T cells are called the special forces. Those are the spies, and they're the Navy SEALs and things like that. So the infantry are the macrophages, the neutrophils, and eosinophils. There's a lot more than that, but those are the three main ones. Every time we experience something going into our body that's not supposed to be there, these vacuum cleaners called macrophages go in there and clean up. Okay? When the reason why we have these physical barriers is because these physical barriers prevent as much foreign substances from entering our bodies so as not to overwhelm the macrophages, the neutrophils, and the eosinophils. But once we puncture the skin and we put these foreign substances in our body in the form of adjuvants and everything, my belief system is that it overwhelms the macrophages. And, you know, by the age of 3, these children are getting like 69 punctures for skin. So it may be that it's a little bit overwhelming. And the case there, again, is to be able to increase the nutritional value of food, increase the detoxification of the body, you know. And I'm saying that it's fine to get these vaccines, but let's also pay attention to how the body gets rid of the foreign substances, and let's help the body increase its cellular immune system.
Okay, what happens when we're looking at synthetic vaccines?
We'll talk about synthetic vaccines in a little bit. So let me continue with the T cells of the cellular immune system. So once the vacuum cleaners and the lysozymes are killed off, these microbes still stay in the body. They're able to last. Like some bacteria are able to last the macrophages and evade the macrophages, and a lot of viruses are able to evade the macrophages because they're hiding. So what the T cells do is some of these T cells look at these cells, and if they're infected, we have these T cells called natural killer cells, NK cells, and they will tag that cells for death. So they'll tag it, and these other cells will come in, and they will actually kill that cell. It's called autophagy. They will naturally kill a cell for the better good of humankind, for the body kind. But they also produce these substances in the body called cytokines. So kines are a natural way for the medical system to say that this is something that belongs into a body. This is a substance that's used as the body. It's kind of like a signaling information. It's a piece of information, a kine, a cytokine. So, for example, a bradykine is a signaling molecule that triggers the body to lower its heart rate. So every time you have a bradykinin, your heart rate lowers. But when you have a cytokinin, you have an information molecule that belongs in the cytoplasm and does something. So they're pieces of information. So now, believe it or not, plants have these pieces of information. Bacteria produces these pieces of information. So when we're actually taking probiotics, we're actually taking plants extracted in a certain way, we're actually taking in pieces of information. So I've come up with a term called a longevikine. And a longevikine is a piece of information that allows your body to live a long time. So it triggers a whole bunch of sequences to say, hey, this is a longevity producing domino effect. So that's what a longevikine is doing. And basically what I'm going to present to you is a whole bunch of longevikines we've identified. So with T cells, a specific type of cytokine is called an interferon. And for viruses, this is very important. So the interferon, we got alpha, beta, and gamma interferons that are being used in therapy. They're being used with different types of therapeutics to counteract the coronavirus as a therapeutic. And I'll go into that. Okay? So the final thing, I won't go back to the slide, but the final thing is called our humoral immune system. So once we go through the belief system, number 1, our physical barriers, number 2, once our nutrition is so inadequate that our bodies aren't strong enough to go against these viruses. And once our microbiome gets compromised, and then once our T cells and our cellular immune system gets compromised, there's that room in the back of our body that has this little glass that says break in case of emergency. Okay? Break in case of emergency means that they only want you to use this thing if and only when you really need it, because you can't use it that much. And that's called our antibody system. That's our white blood cell system. That's when the white blood cells see the trapped viruses and they're creating antibodies to it. And antibodies are basically road barriers, they're roadblocks. And so when the police throw like these nails out on the road and they stop a car in its tracks, those are antibodies. So antibodies don't actually kill viruses, they actually trap antibodies, and they trap the viruses to the point where the macrophages and the white blood cells can clear them out of the way.
Okay, now where do we go from here? Because I'm still going to pester you. I want to find out what happens with those. I want to know what happens with those synthetic vaccines, since I'm a person who has issues there.
We'll get there. Okay, so let me keep going. So once we get past the basic levels of immunity, when we're talking about flattening the curve, we're talking about number 2.
Yeah.
Okay. Self-quarantine and being responsible with yourself, covering your mouth, staying inside, especially if you're sick. So what I'm talking about is eliminating the curve. So let's be determined and let's go after nutrition, find out how we can get nutritious foods. Number 4, let's create microbiome-friendly foods with a lot of small-chain fatty acids and foods that increase our white blood cells and T cells, but also foods that increase our red blood cells and our B cells, which is where our humoral systems comes in. And to do those, we need to do 3 things. I'm going to talk about devices that do this. And number 2, I'm talking about supplementation. And number 3, fermentation.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Okay. So just as a general overview, the 2 approaches that we're talking about are both offensive and defensive. And so I just happen to like team sports, football and basketball. There's always an offense and a defense. So offensive teams are always looking to put points, or basically looking to seek and eliminate. They target what they want to target and they eliminate it. And basically our general approach, there are general devices that I'm going to talk about, medical ozone and electricity, and then there are targeted approaches. Now, the targeted approaches is where our pharmaceutical companies are. They've got targeted vaccines, they got antivirals, and other therapies. But what I want people to build upon and what I'll touch on a little bit is called our defensive approaches, and that's prevention. That's to build our levels of natural immunity. Number 1 being real nutrition. Number 2, building a diverse microbiome. Number 3, creating natural supplements to activate our cellular and humoral immune system. Number 4, belief system, having a purpose in life. Number 5, social interaction when it's possible. And number 6, EMF protection. So from there, we're going to talk about the first device. And this device is actually something that I've been using for a long time. And these 2 devices are by no means the only devices out there to protect ourselves against the coronavirus. But because this is the talk that I'm giving this from my own personal experience. And I'm a device fanatic. I spent hundreds and thousands of dollars on devices. And the devices that I would carry with me everywhere I go are 2 devices. It's a medical ozone generator and this electrical device called the neopulsar. In fact, this electrical neopulsar device I carry with me everywhere I go, especially when I go overseas. And I've seen it time and time again protect people against any viral outbreak, and it's protected them. In fact, 10 years ago, my nephew went to China with his high school. And he and a buddy of his had this electrical device, and they were the only ones not affected by the bird flu at that time by having this.
Quick question. Is this kind of like a much more sophisticated version of the bug box, Helga Budwig's original bug box that uses frequency?
Yeah.
Those are great.
This is actually so sophisticated, it's very simple.
Yeah.
But it's super effective. Okay.
And what is it called again?
It's called an electrical neopulsar. And it's worth its weight in gold. We don't have very much of it left because a lot of our customers have been buying out of it, but we probably maybe have 100 devices of it left, if that. So first come, first serve, I guess.
Okay.
So the first thing I'll talk about is medical ozone. And these are proactive measures to eliminate the curve. Okay, so medical ozone, and with each therapy, I'm going to bore you. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons, but I'll move through this rather quickly. And again, all this stuff will be readily available for download. So the pros of medical ozone is that it's proven to inactivate virus on contact, and it's relatively inexpensive. Relatively, I know that there's a lot of people out there that don't have enough food to eat, and I really appreciate that, and I honor you deeply. But when it comes to healthcare costs, people are spending tens and thousands of dollars on their healthcare, and these ozone devices are in the hundreds of dollars. I'm talking about $500. So when I say relatively inexpensive, I know a lot of people there can't afford $500, and I'm really sorry about that. But compared to the thousands of dollars one would pay in terms of keeping going back to the doctor, back again, and buying these things that just aren't effective, medical ozone is relatively inexpensive. The cons of ozone is that the ozone gas is pretty noxious to breathe in. And every time you use an ozone machine, you're going to breathe it in and you're going to have noxious fumes. Too much of it can actually harm the body. And in some people, you have to take note of this, ozone can actually speed up the progression of some degenerative diseases. So you got to talk to your medical professional about whether or not ozone is right.
Isn't there a way to protect yourself from breathing in the noxious gas?
And the way that I'm going to present it to you is that the ozone that comes out is actually going to be inactivated, and you use fans. So there's lots of ways to do it. So
okay,
be high and dry. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
It's not breathe in. It's not oxygen. Okay. So ways ozone is being used right now is ozonated water is very cleansing, and one thing that people are doing is they're spraying things down with alcohol, but they're also spraying things down with bleach. And bleach is very bad for the immune system, spraying things down with bleach. It's horrible. Where ozonated water is not. And if you can ozonate water, that ozone in the water stays for about 15 minutes. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so after you ozonate it, it keeps that ozonated charge, right?
It'll keep that ozonated charge for at most 15 minutes, but after 5 minutes, dump it out and put new ozonated water and start spraying your money. And you can actually ozonate water and put all your money in the water. You get all the viruses out. Put all your coins, your money. It'll dry out, So just spray. You take a hair dryer and you dry it out, and it'll be fine.
And your fruits and obviously your fruits and vegetables.
That's a must.
Yeah.
Do this every single time, even when it comes from farmer's market.
Yeah, especially now. Yeah.
Yeah. So you ozonate your fruits and vegetables. And I would ozonate our credit cards. So I ozonate our credit cards, and I wipe down our wallets. You wipe down anything that money touches. Anytime it goes through a money machine, wipe it down with ozonated water.
I need to get one of those. I haven't purchased it yet. Okay.
So another machine, I offered to give you one.
I know, we got out of communication at that time.
Because I have an extra one.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Okay?
We'll chat later. Okay, go ahead.
But I already gave that one away.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
So, and by the way, just for everyone knowledge, Regina, I don't pay Regina anything for this. She's always done this for the good of I've never paid her anything for these interviews. So
yeah, no, of course not. Everybody just loves you. So I like exposing you to the audience because the people that watch my stuff love you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for supporting us and supporting First Senate Health. So another thing that's people are doing now is they're giving their houses 15-minute ozone shock treatments. And this is not a water ozonator. This is actually a room ozonator. This is relatively inexpensive. I've talked to the owner of the company I'm going to forward you to, and he's gladly given me a 10% discount. If you put a Senate Health into the notes, he'll refund you 10%. And you can get the shock treatment. You can get the water ozonator for 10% off from foreverozone.com. And when you shock treat a room with ozone for 15 minutes, it literally kills all the viruses in that room everywhere. It'll kill all your bed bugs. It'll kill all the, you put it in a closet, it kills all the moths in a closet. So it's a great thing. Yeah.
Okay.
From our own EPA, there's a study says that ozone is a very strong oxidant and virucide right there. It says that it kills viruses. Not just any viruses, it kills all viruses on contact. Ozone therapy, in PubMed, they say that diseases treated by ozone therapy are infected wounds. You can clean all infections with ozonated water, circulatory disorders, geriatric conditions. This is if you drink the water. You can actually put ozonation in your eyes, ozonated water in your eyes. You clear macular degeneration. There it is, viral diseases, arthritis, cancer, SARS, which is a coronavirus, and HIV, which is very closely related to coronavirus, ozone gas. So this one study talked about the inactivation for influenza virus by ozone gas. And again, these studies, look at this, back in 2009. The other studies, 2011. So this is not new. This is 2009, saying that's inactivating influenza virus. If without the ozone, the virus remained active after 10 hours under similar conditions, but with less than 20 parts per million of ozone gas, it kills 99.999% of the influenza virus. So ozone shock treatment is amazing to a room.
Thank you.
And I'm going to show you how to do shock treatment to your body through the ears, okay? What's interesting about the coronavirus is that the coronavirus is very similar to the HIV virus and the Ebola virus. Okay, so this is one study that I'm showing you. Really important. The next study is just one study that I'm showing you. It's not a series of studies. It's not a clinical trial. This is what I call an anecdotal study. So just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, and these are doctors just trying to do their best and report something that they saw. But this has not gone through a clinical trial. Okay, grain of salt time. This is a medical ozone. In this study, several doctors who already love ozone therapy tried it out on 4 healthcare workers that had Ebola, and 3 tested positive. So they infused it in their blood. They infused it in their rectums. I'm going to show you how to infuse it in your ear. And then they gave them ozonated water to drink. To infuse ozone into your blood, you have to go to a proper naturopath or a proper medical doctor that does what's called 10-pass ozone or 8-pass ozone. And you can infuse ozone into your blood. And I would highly, highly recommend that. So they infuse it into their blood. They put something up their rectum and they infused ozone gas in through their colon, and they gave them ozonated water to drink. And what happens was, usually the survival rate of healthcare workers infected with Ebola was 40%. And typically the death occurs within a week or less. But these guys were free of symptoms, inclusive of fever, generally by day 3 of treatment.
Excellent.
Right?
Yeah, that's voracious. Yeah.
Okay, so unlike other Ebola treatments, ozone therapy is inexpensive, costing $10 a day. Again, this is one thing, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so how to use ozone devices. Okay, so I'm going to give you this company called foreverozone.com. They're out of San Diego. The guy's name is Mike. I've been using his devices to create my own customized ozone device. He's overwhelmed with orders, but if you mentioned ascendedhealth.com, he doesn't have to do this. He will give you a 10% refund code if you go to his site, foreverozone.com. There are 2 ways to get a medical ozone oxygen ozonator and an oxygen concentrator. One way is just to get the ozonator itself. So this is called a water ozonator. This is kind of a close-up. And what it does, it's got plasma tubes in here. It creates ozone through plasma discharge, not corona discharge. It's a better way of creating ozone. But what happens is this ozone comes out through this little tube, this little bubbler that's meant to go inside water. So when you just take this tube and it's just coming from air only contains 21% oxygen. And you're getting like kind of dirty ozone coming out the other end. So to get actually clean ozone, you have to have the ozone having a source of oxygen that's nearly 100% oxygen. And so what I would recommend, if you can afford it, is to get an ozonator with an oxygen concentrator. You see the oxygen concentrator on the right, and it literally triples, quadruples the cost of this system. So you can get one without the oxygen concentrator and get the ozone from air, and then you bubble ozone into water. But the good news is that when you bubble ozone through water, you can have a water bubbler through another company called drosolutions.com. I don't have a relationship with them, but what happens is you buy this $59 piece of equipment, you get your own additional ozonator, it bubbles ozone through gas, and then you can take the ozone coming out here. You can either take that ozone and then you put that ozone into an ear unit and you bubble that ozone into your ear. And what happens is that, let's say this unit is connected to this unit and this unit is connected to the oxygen concentrator, you will have medical grade ozone for less than $600 or $700. And they're usually $3,500, $4,000 for these medical grade ozone. This is a $600 system going into your ear. And you only need like 5 to 20 minutes worth of ozone going to your ear, and you have ozone flooding into your body.
Okay, so how does it end up penetrating and affecting our entire body by putting it in our ears? How's that work? Okay,
so let's say you have your ozone device here. And again, the optimal way is to have an oxygen concentrator connected to the ozone-producing device, but that ozone-producing device goes into a mason jar that has water in it. Then you have another tube coming out, and that tube is connected to that ear thingy, right? So once you have it in the ear thingy, it goes into your ear like this. And the ozone just blows into your ear canal. And believe it or not, your ear canal is open to the air. That's why we have to blow our ears when we're into oxygen. And it goes right through your eardrum. And when it goes through your eardrum, it literally goes right straight into your brain, the ozone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyone with brain infections or anything.
What about sinus infections and all?
And mouth infections, right?
If you do that through the ears?
Do it through the ears, and the first thing that hits is the upper gums. So if you have like a root canal coming up, or if you have a gum, do this first, because the dentist, when they're doing ozonation through your gums, they're doing it from the outside, but you're doing this from the inside out. It's really effective for gums.
Cool. Okay. Very good.
Oh, this thing's awesome.
If you have the money, if you have the cash and you can get whole of one, you're talking the whole system all in about $600. Other places are probably, there are other more, a little more expensive.
But you're going to get a 10% discount from Mike.
Okay.
You know, whether you buy like the oxygen concentrator. Without the oxygen concentration, it's only like maybe $200.
Okay, cool. Okay, now, so
without
let's.
the oxygen concentrator, you're still getting ozone into the body.
Yeah.
And that water trap that you have, it traps all the nitrous oxides that are really dangerous for your body. It just traps it in that water. Right?
All right.
What comes out is just pure ozone. So dump that water out. And when you're creating ozonated water, you just put that in a mason jar. You create ozonated water, or you just put it directly into your spray bottle. And that's how you start
spray down everything.
Everything.
Okay, so ozone. Now, what is the other device after ozone?
Just one more device. This is the shock treatment device, $70. So it's a solid state device. And again, you get a 10% discount code. Okay.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about protective measures to eliminate the curve. We're going to talk about low voltage and low amperage electricity. Okay, so
again, like the bug box. Yep.
I'm not sure what the bug box is.
Oh, it's such a low-tech version of that, but it actually worked way back in the day in the I think it was the 40s and 50s when she first created this little circuit box. You could put it in a cigar box or whatever that ran a 9-volt battery, low voltage, and went to little wires that had copper handles. And you could eliminate viruses from the body. I mean, some people have the schematic and still make those little things. Not quite as sophisticated, I think, as what you're doing. But it worked. It worked. I used to have one. It actually works.
Yeah. Well, this neopulsar actually looks really ridiculously simple, and it comes with real simple devices, but it's there's a lot of sophistication in the box, but it's couched to look like it was made by like a second grader.
Okay. Like bug box.
Yeah.
I had mine in a cigar box.
So basically with low voltage, low amperage electricity, people are finding out that, when you had snake bites, if you connected yourself to basically the battery of a car or a battery of a small bike, or even plug yourself into the wall and you start electrocuting yourself, it would inactivate the snake venom. Yeah, but it was just too much. So
you think? Your hair's fried.
Exactly. So, the cons of using electricity is that it can actually burn your body.
Mm-hmm. Electrocute you. Mm-hmm.
Well, this device, because it's so low, it's low electricity, it won't electrocute you.
Yeah, no, I get these low voltage ones, yeah.
The skin. That's the only con to this. But the pros are it's relatively inexpensive. There's no noxious fumes, and it's consistent. I can tell you that this neopulsar is the one thing I will take with me believe it or not, more than any of my products. I will take this thing if I have a viral.
Well, it makes she called it a bug zapper back then, but I mean, it's a bug zapper, right?
Yeah. And it just zaps these bugs, but it doesn't zap the viruses themselves. What it does, it zaps them so they can't replicate, basically, and then the body takes care of it. These researchers, Dr. Lyman and Stephen Calley, they worked at the Einstein School of Medicine. They found that because of like this bug zapper, they got the idea of, hey, can we stick this bug zapper and can we put these electrodes actually inside the body? So they actually took these electrodes and they put it inside the arteries of a human body, someone with the AIDS virus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they poked a hole into the artery and they applied a direct current into the artery, but really small microamperes. And they found that every single HIV particles was adversely affected, but the normal cells remained unharmed. Let me say that again. All of the HIV particles were adversely affected, meaning that they were killed.
Mm-hmm.
normal cells remained unharmed.
Yeah, that's kind of the holy grail.
So when they filed for a patent on this, in November 6, 1990, they got the patent number 5,139, number 684, on August 12, 1992. 9 months later, after patenting, there's the patent. It's unheard of.
Yeah.
Right? So the weird...
Because it has no detrimental or side effects.
It had no side effects. So something strange happened after they patented it. They kind of went underground. They stopped talking about it. And to this day, if you ask any of these doctors what's happening with their patent, they're not going to tell you what's going on. So they would just refuse to talk.
Okay.
So this enterprising young scientist at the time, his name is Bob Beck. He looked at the device and he's like, well, that's a great device, but I think I can make a better one, but not actually stick the electrodes inside the arteries. So he came up with a device called a Beck device. And then Hulda Clark came up with a device, that's your bug zapper.
Yeah. Right?
And then this device that we came up with, actually, I'm not the one that came up with it. It's a fellow by the name of Don Croft came up with this device, which we call the Neopulsar. We've amended it slightly to make it more amenable to managing viruses. Originally, this device was there for parasites, but we've taken this device and amended it slightly, and we're selling it on our site. $355, and again, it's not cheap, but it's highly, highly effective.
How do you actually use it?
This Neopulsar looks like this, and the way you actually use it is you turn it on.
Yeah.
You'll see like this
green flashing light.
And then all you need to do is make sure that the green light is flashing such as this, and then you just put it on your skin like this, okay? If you put it on thin skin, it works the best. Some people put it like in the back of their pants, but what I'd like to do is at night, you actually put this on the soles of your feet and you just wear a sock over it on the soles of your feet. And the soles of your feet are so thick that it's never going to burn your skin. If you put this on the side of your hand, or you stick this on your back, it'll start to feel like it's burning your skin. So it'll irritate your skin. But you put it on at night and you leave it there all night, it'll basically put this electricity through your body.
If you're holding it in your hand, how long would you hold it?
I can hold it for a long time. This is the way my 5-year-old holds it at night.
Yeah.
She holds it like this, and then when she falls asleep, I have my own. And what's cool is like the body is full of water. So if you put this on the skin of your foot, you can actually hold your loved one, and they'll get it too, because they'll get the electricity through their body too. And you can actually do a ring.
While you're spooning.
When you're spooning.
Interesting.
With my daughter, I'm holding her hand or I'm holding her foot until she finds out that I'm holding her foot, and then she kicks me and tosses it away. So she falls asleep again, and I hold her foot again.
So so you're saying, and this includes all of the COVID type of viruses in general, that what it does is it stops their ability to reproduce. It neuters them.
So the cool thing about this thing is you look at the inside, is really cool, right?
Yeah.
The reason why we call this a Neopulsar is because the first thing that happens is you have a 9-volt battery, which I'm kind of holding up with my fingers, but it's connected to an IC555 chip, which we amended. And it's an integrated circuit 555 timer chip, and it's pulsing out at a particular frequency. But then, what happens is that frequency is going through like these special gemstones, and then it goes through what's called a combination of gold, copper, and real silver, right?
Yeah.
that accounts for the high price of this.
Yeah.
People call it orgone. I don't know what it's called, but it actually changes the electricity into something new. Then it wraps around a piece of amethyst, and it wraps around using an Egyptian toroidal coil,
Yeah.
around a magnet, and it just comes around. And what happens is you have these two pure copper discs that it puts onto, and it's a different type of electricity. It's a different electricity than these other that are out there. And this thing is it's a miracle.
Oh, you know, I can tell you just from years ago when I would carry my bug box around with the copper handles and 9 volts, just simple stripped down thing. It actually worked. You could feel a little bit of a tingle and it would start clearing what was in your body. So it's amazingly low tech in that sense. And yours has just been it's in contact with many more beautiful frequencies along the way than what I had. So I would be very interested to experience that one. That's great. I really love simple, low tech, easy to use things. I mean, that's my thing because I'm lazy.
Yeah. You put it on while you're driving, so you don't have to use ozone or anything. So just by having this, you don't really need the ozone, in my opinion.
Good news. Well, I love it. And thanks so much for sharing that with us. We're going to have to sign off here in a sec. So just any final thing that you want to share with us.
The thing is we only have a very limited amount of these electrical needle.
Yeah, I'm sure you're going to be overwhelmed and you'll be sold out soon because I want to get one, that's for sure. I do want to do that. Yep.
I just want to tell people that if we do place you on back order, we'll have to refund your money until we get the new set of like 500 or 100 to in, but we'll tell you when it's coming in.
Sounds good. Well, Compton, what a journey. Oh my God. We have been through everything. We've been through the body. We've been through the blood. We've been through the microbiome, and we've been through our own psycho-spiritual state, which is where we started. So with that, I want to thank you so much. We may have to break this down into 3 parts because we've covered a lot of ground. And with that, I really want to thank you for putting this together for us, because I think the reason people resonate so strongly with you is because you're not afraid. You understand how the cells work, how viruses and bacteria work together. And so not to be afraid of our own bodies because we're made of all of that. So again, I don't have enough words to say thank you for putting this together for our audience here so we can boost our own health.
You're welcome. And again, I put together a really comprehensive presentation. So if you'd like for me to come again, I'll tell you about the latest vaccines, the latest therapeutics, and most of all the natural supplements, and then how we can make our own live fermented products. Because when you ferment things, it actually breaks down these natural supplements into a much more highly bioavailable format. Some say even 100 times more effective. We'll definitely do that. I think it's important. Things are going to look different a month from now. This is going up very quickly. And then we'll get back together and see where we are then and how we can progress our well-being. Okay? Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody. I really thank you for staying tuned with us. It's been a long presentation because it's in depth and it's meant to be a total resource for you. So until next time, thank you for joining us here on reginameredith.com, and you can catch Compton and a couple of the products that were included today under ascendedhealth.com. Thank you.